I'm going to jump out and come back in.
Okay, bye.
Yes. Okay, I'm in class, okay? Thank you. Thanks, bye. Get my arrangements for tonight.
David went out. He'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
And we're live, so
Yeah, that's fine. I answered that.
yeah.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that's better for me.
Freda didn't answer. I mean, she didn't answer.
I can hear,
Oh, okay.
but I could hear before too.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are chapter 24, I believe, right?
Correct.
That's where my marker is.
Right at the beginning.
Wait a minute. You gotta tell
Oh,
me.
this is Nadav and Avihu.
I'm
this is-
sorry. Yeah.
Going
No,
up
but
the
it's
mountain.
kind of like our introduction to them.
Anybody have
Okay, who wants?
a page? I'd like it.
476 in Eitz Chaim.
Pardon?
476. in
Thank
Eitz Chaim.
you. Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll read. Then, I guess that's God. Then God said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord with Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, and blow from afar."
Will you? Okay.
What were we saying?
Well, you're breaking up, so.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I didn't hear everything.
So why don't you all read? Because for some reason I have a lousy connection today.
Okay, I'll read. To Moses he said, "Go up to Hashem, you, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall prostrate yourselves from a distance." Do you want more?
No. So I have God said this to Moses on the 4th of Sivan, according to Rashi.
Yeah.
According to the other commentators mentioned previously, this command came after the 10 Commandments had been uttered, either on the 6th or the 7th day of the month, depending on the two views of which day the revelation at Sinai took place.
So there's a dispute. But before the 10 Commandments or after, right?
Well, I don't know if the dispute is whether it's before the 10 Commandments or after the 10 Commandments, or whether it's on the 6th or 7th day, depending on when revelation took place.
Right. Well, now Rashi also says that it was on the 4th of Sivan that it was said to Moses, "Go up to Hashem." So,
Right.
But, yeah.
That's what I said.
Come up to the Lord.
Well, it's interesting. To Moses, he said, "Go up to Hashem." But then, and then he says, "Who should come with him?" And then he says, "You shall prostrate yourselves from a distance."
Yes, yes. Bow low from afar.
So in verse 2, we find out that only Moses goes up by himself, but
Well, he's the only one who approaches.
Well, that's in the next chapter. That's in the next two, number 2.
Verse, yeah. But I mean, that's different from he being the, in other words, I think they all were told to go up.
But couldn't go close.
But not close, because you shall prostrate yourself from afar.
And then only Moses
Only Moses.
And Sforno has nothing about which day of Sivan.
Okay, so I've gone back to.
Oh, wait, he does. He does. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let me read.
Well, I've gone back to when they arrived at Sinai, and it's Bachodesh HaShlishi, the 3rd month. And the commentary back then was, this took place on the 1st of Sivan. Torah tells us immediately which month it was and how much time it elapsed. So apparently they got there on the 1st of Sivan. And now they had, so then we had the question of, the rabbi's gone.
I think he's trying to get a better connection.
Yeah. So then we had the question of, did they prepare themselves for 2 days or for 3 days? Do you remember when we talked about that?
Yes.
So that must be why we don't know whether this is the sixth or 7th day. But if God's, so God said this to Moses on the 4th of Sivan. So on the 3rd or the 4th is when the 10 commandments were uttered, the 10 statements were uttered. So immediately after that, God says to Moses, okay, so the people were there for the 10 commandments, and now you come up and get the rest, but Aaron and his sons and 70 elders come halfway. Well, maybe we'll find out why.
This is confusing a little bit. It is. It says, if this is in 2, the others shall not come near, nor shall the people come up with them. So those 70 were the ones who had to stay away, right?
Well, the 70 plus the 3 are only to come up part way. The rest of the multitude has to stay at the bottom of the mountain.
Everyone else but those, yeah, okay.
Right.
I'm looking to see if I can.
Did you have something else you were reading?
I was reading Sforno, what he said about verse 1, but it doesn't speak at all to what we're talking about. It just, and he said to Moses, come up. And after he concluded saying, thus shall you say to the children of Israel, you have seen. And after, so he goes on, Sforno is not touching on this at all.
Okay, so the commentary that I have says, this chapter shifts from the laws that have been the subject of the Sidra up to now back to the revelation at Sinai. God instructed Moses regarding his ascent up Mount Sinai, where he would remain for 40 days to be taught the Torah in its entirety, and regarding the covenant that the Jewish people would seal with God, signifying their acceptance of the Torah and their eternal responsibility to study and uphold it. Okay, there is a disagreement among the commentators regarding when the events in this chapter took place, a disagreement that is found in Mechilta as well. According to Rashi, the events recorded in verses 1 to 11 occurred before the 10 commandments were given. Indeed, as will be noted in the commentary, the Talmud supports this view. Even though this would mean that the revelation recorded in chapter 20 happened after the narrative given here, 4 chapters later, this is not a problem because of the principle that the Torah is not necessarily written in chronological order.
There you go.
There is.
Ramban,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ramban, Ibn Ezra, Rashbam, among others, maintain that these events took place after Israel had received the Ten Commandments and Moses had taught them the laws of the previous 3 chapters. Although they agree that some portions of the Torah are not in chronological order, they avoid such an interpretation unless it is demanded by the context. In this chapter, they do not find it necessary to interpret it out of order. So Rashi seems to stand alone, saying this is before the 10 Commandments. All the other commentators seem to think that this is after the 10 Commandments.
Right, right. So that's, yeah.
You're going past chapter 1, though, or no?
This is the introduction to the chapter.
Okay, because there's other commentary.
No,
here.
I understand that. But kind of no specifics, just this idea of when it happens.
Yeah.
Is Rashi says it happens after the 10 Commandments. All of the others seem to say it happened before the 10 Commandments.
So it's anybody's guess.
Rashi before, everybody else after. Sorry.
Is Rabbi in the room?
I'm here.
I'm looking up, I'm trying to see also if there's anything else I can find.
Did you all talk about come up but stay afar?
Yeah, well, we mentioned slightly that that everyone was called up, but the majority were told to stay back, and then we peeked ahead to verse 2 that Moses was called forward, but we were stuck on when this happened.
Right.
Because Rashi says it's the 4th of Sivan, and now that's what Dino is clarifying.
Yeah. Yep. Because because Shavuot is on the 8th of Sivan, which is the revelation. So this would be, according to Rashi, 4 days before the revelation.
But Dina just read from I forget who you said you were reading from, that it was after.
Yeah, Nachmanides, Ibn Ezra, Rashbam, among others.
So we still have a confusion among our
Right.
commentators.
Rashi was a different one.
But Rashi's seems to make more sense. If it is before he receives the 10 Commandments, then this would be the moment at which he's called up, called forward alone.
So are you saying that Moses got the 10 Commandments before we did? Because that's what Rashi, if that's true, that's what Rashi's saying, as opposed to everybody heard it at the same time.
Oh.
Why? Why are you saying that?
Why am I saying what?
That Moshe got him first.
If we follow Rashi's interpretation, and he says this happens before the 10 Commandments, and Moses goes up to Hashem, if he's getting the 10 Commandments, then he gets them before all the Israelites get them.
But he may not get them on the 4th of Sivan. He's called forth on the 4th of Sivan.
Regardless of when he's called forth, the question becomes, does he get them before all of the rest of the Israelites get them?
No, I don't think so either. I think my mom is right that this is on the 4th of Sivan is when he's called to come up. This is describing what happens before the 10 Commandments are given.
So you agree with Rashi?
Well, okay. I don't know, because if you sneak peek ahead to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rules and the commands there are with regard to how they should come close to the mountain, I think. Right? So the laws that he's explaining there are don't come near, stay, women stay away, stuff like that. I think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, should we read ahead and then I can read
Yeah,
some
yeah.
comments
Yeah,
that
let's
I've got?
yeah, let's do that.
All right, what are we at 2 now? You want me to do 2? Okay, and Moses shall approach by himself toward Hashem, but they shall not approach, and the people shall not go up with him. More?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Moses came and told the people all the words of Hashem and all the laws. And the entire people responded with one voice, and they said, all the words that Hashem has spoken, we will do.
So the way Ramban Nachmanides understands Rashi is that Rashi only takes the first 2 verses to have occurred before the giving of the 10 Commandments. Right? So that addresses your question, Dina. So the first 2 verses about going up, he says, Ramban says that Rashi says that those took place on the 4th of Sivan. Verse 12 happened after the giving of the Torah. And he doesn't say anything about verses 3 through 11.
Oh, sure. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, right?
Well, should we decipher it ourselves from 3 to 11?
All right. Well, for 3 and 4, here's the comment that I have, and see if this helps or just adds to the confusion. According to Rashi, again, Rashi, my dear friend Rashi, Moses instructed the people to encircle the mountain and desist from sexual relations. He repeated the previously given ordinances, that is, the 7 universal Noahide laws and the laws that had been taught in Marah, the Sabbath, honor of parents, the red cow, and civil laws. Then he wrote the Torah from the beginning until that point in chapter 20, and he wrote the above laws. The next morning, the 5th of Sivan, he erected an altar.
Oh boy.
According to Nachman and everybody else, he taught and wrote all the teachings of the last 3 chapters, which God had taught him in Mount Sinai, and on the next morning, he erected the altar.
This is confusing.
So it's,
Well, I wonder if we need to clarify what revelation means, because it seems to me that there are a few different things going on here. One is the giving of the tablets. I know that hasn't even happened yet, but that's one piece that we sometimes associate with revelation. The second piece is the giving of all these laws, like the 10 Commandments, like the laws of Marah, things like that. That's separate from the giving of the tablets, and some of us associate that with revelation. I wonder if there isn't, though, a third aspect to revelation that doesn't have anything to do with law, that is God revealing God's self. And maybe that's what happened. I mean, that's what happened on Shavuot. I know that we also celebrate the getting of the 10 Commandments, but I wonder if there's a way to distinguish between getting the laws and revelation, and if that helps the conversation at all.
well, by revelation, you mean the actual visual seeing of something?
Well, yeah, or hearing God's voice, or whatever that was.
It all isn't lumped as one thing, the revelation, the giving, and all the stuff that happened around it. That wasn't, I was always under the impression, and had heard from different teachers, that it was everything to do with that little bit of time, those few days.
No, you're right. I agree with you. I think it has been all lumped together. I guess what Rashi and Ramban are bringing up here, though, is that maybe we need to break down the components of this to understand the timing better. Maybe we can't lump it all together. I'm just wondering. I'm thinking out loud. You're right. That
with the most knowledge of Torah, and I mean, what were discussions in the past that you've had about? Do you remember what anybody had to say about this?
We're learning them right now, Rashi and Ramban.
But we've already heard the 10 utterances.
Right.
assuming that in this case, according to Nachmanides and even Ezra and whoever the other one was that I mentioned, that the Torah in this case is in chronological order, then we have already had the 10 utterances.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, but does this make sense? If we take verses 1 and 2 and we move them before the Ten Commandments and Revelation, doesn't it make sense then? Right? This is, he said to Moses, oh wait, I'm reading the wrong thing. He said to Moses, come up to the Lord with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, 70 elders, bow from afar. Moses alone shall come near the Lord, the others shall not come near, nor shall the people come up with him. Full stop. 10 Commandments, 10 Commandments, 10 Commandments, 10 Commandments. Revelation, full stop. Moses went and repeated to the people all the commands of the Lord and all the rules. That makes sense, doesn't it?
So that everything was done, and he's just everything was done before that.
I have I'm on Chabad, looking at Mishpatim. I have a commentary here. It says the commentaries differ as to the timing of the events described in the closing verses of Mishpatim. According to Rashi, the Torah now returns to fill us in on the events that occurred before the revelation at Sinai and the speaking of the 10 Commandments, recounted in chapters 19 through 20. Moses' summons to the top of the mountain mentioned here was on the 4th of Sivan, 2 days before the giving of the Torah. On that day, he relayed to the people of Israel, as mentioned in verse 3, the words of God commanded in chapter 19, to fence in the mountain and to sanctify themselves in preparation for the giving of the Torah, as well as the laws which they had already received in Marah. He also wrote on the words of God, verse 4, that is, from the beginning of Genesis until the middle of Exodus, bringing the Torah up to date until the revelation at Sinai. The altar mentioned were verses 4 and 6, was built, and the sacrifices, verses 5 through 8, were offered on the 5th of Sivan, which is also the day on which the people of Israel made the famous proclamation, we will do and we will hear, verse 7. Then the Torah describes how they saw the God of Israel, verse 10, at the giving of the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. Finally, we read how following the general giving of the Torah, I don't know what that means, the general giving of the Torah, Moses is summoned to the top of the mountain for 40 days to receive the detailed communication from God, including the laws we just read in the earlier chapters of Mishpatim. Anyway.
So Moses doesn't get anything before the other people. But what happens, if I understood that correctly, before the 10 Commandments are given, before the revelation, Moses repeats the laws that had already been given to everyone, the laws from Marah and the 7 Noahide laws.
Right.
Then they build altars and they do all their preparations. Then we get the 10 Commandments. Then we come back to this chapter, verse 13, and the narrative picks up.
Yeah. It ends, by the way, with everything that we've been saying, that it is consistent with the rule that there is no earlier and later in Torah. The Torah does not necessarily relate events in the order in which they occurred.
Does that make you feel any better, Dina?
While I was reading.
I don't know.
Confusing because somebody tried to make it be in order, or numerous people tried to
No, this definitely is out of order. We've found in other places where it's very out of order. I think nobody has tried to really.
Well, in their way of thinking, well, they were different.
Well, I think Lenore's question is, if and correct me if I'm wrong, Lenore, why is it in this order if the intention of the editor was not to describe to us the order in which it took place,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Well, this was an oral tradition first. No?
No, yeah,
And
well, yeah, yes, and not really. I mean, the Torah was really never oral tradition, but even if you believe that there are multiple authors, and we have, and maybe verses 1 through 12 is from a different author than verses 13 forward, which is entirely possible. There was someone who came along, a redactor, who put this in this order. Why did they put this in this? Why didn't they just take verses 1 and 2, or 1 through 12, and put it before the giving of the Ten Commandments? I don't have the answer to that, but I
Well,
think it's
that's actually what was in my head. I couldn't figure that out.
well, sometimes when you're editing, I'm trying to pretend I'm an editor now. Sometimes when you're editing and you have information in front of you, and you may have from multiple sources information that you're trying to smush together, you want to be sure not to leave anything out, even though the pieces may not fit perfectly. And so you squish them together to be sure you get them all in and you don't leave out anything important.
I was grading papers. I gave my 10th graders a short paper. They had to watch a video about what it means to be a mensch, and then write. We had just finished studying some Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, and I asked them to write a piece that reflected on how Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, what are the most important teachings from Pirkei Avot that help us learn how to be a mensch. And as I was reading these papers, and this is just high school writing. This isn't. I'm not trashing my students. They're all brilliant and wonderful, but they would reference the video, or they would talk about a personal experience and not necessarily immediately connect it to a Mishnah from Pirkei Avot. And I would put a comment on it saying, where's your source, or what, how is this connected? And then I would get to the next paragraph, and then they would cite it felt like this, a little disjointed. This almost reads like high school writing, that it's not really
Connected smoothly.
right.
That's true.
And the truth is that after reading the whole paper, just like reading the whole Torah, I got their point. I got the connections they were trying to make, but a close reading felt like pieces were out of place. And that still doesn't answer why, though.
But that's kind of interesting, because doesn't Rashi in all his comments give a very close reading? Isn't he into commas and grammar? And
Yeah, no, absolutely.
so does he miss the whole picture by being so delicate and intricate in his analysis of things? Is his focus too close?
That's interesting. One of the debates in teaching Torah and sacred texts to in the day school world is, do you teach the text in the original in Hebrew, or do you not do that? And the difference being that when you teach them in Hebrew, you can really get granular, and you can really dive into, what does this word mean? Why did they choose this word versus that word? But in doing so, you often miss some of the big ideas that you there's no time. There isn't enough time in the day to both be incredibly focused, medakdek, and also be very broad and open and comprehensive. And
It's also a different mindset too.
Yeah.
It's like focusing in with a microscope, or looking, or stepping way back to see the whole room. And it's hard to do both of those things. I'm sorry, Lenore.
No, it's okay. The kids they're inside, or it hasn't always grown that far that they can do those interpretations. I don't understand.
Well, not only that, Lenore, but I would take it a step farther. What we do here is very unappealing to a lot of people in our class, because we have our noses in the book and we are incredibly granular, and we stop at every comma, and
Kids hate that.
and I've had so not only do kids hate that, 'cause I agree with you, you're right. I think kids get incredibly bored by that very often, but I think adults also.
Yes.
We're our study, this kind of study, this is a very yeshiva kind of study. We're really going word by word, letter by letter, and I think that for a lot of people, not just kids, for a lot of people, they get bored with the details. It's Dina will. This is a familiar trope of mine, but we are living kitniot on the brain. Kitniot is the what grains, not grains, but what rice or beans or things you can or cannot eat. And Judaism so often gets lost in the minutia of that it's a real turnoff for a lot of people. That's why I've made a lot of enemies when I've given sermons when I say God doesn't care if you keep kosher, because God cares, I think, about the big ideas, the value of life, sanctifying life, setting limits, and not feeling that we have ownership over everything. We're the ones who care about, do I have to have 2 sets of dishes, and do I have to wait 3 hours or 6 hours after I eat meat? That's minutia that we've decided is important. That's not minutia I think that God has decided is important. And for a lot of Jews today, that what we do in this class and what Rashi does, I think, is very unappealing.
I may have told you this about a friend of mine who went to Yale Law School, and there were young people who had gone to yeshiva in Brooklyn, New York, or that area, and they went all through the tough Hebrew learning. And she said that she and her friends could not understand how they dealt with that minutia. In law school, they were the ones who actually were able to do interpretation of cases that nobody else could quite come up with. And from their past, they would describe it, that they went through this for many years. And I think that's very interesting as it transmits to law. But as you're looking at younger kids and you're trying to break their minds into this kind of thinking, in our country and the way we do things today, I think it is boring for them. I think.
That's why Hillary Clinton is boring.
She's a lawyer, and she's a bright lawyer.
Well, she's brilliant,
Yeah.
but she's in the minutia. She is a detail-oriented, policy-oriented person, and that's boring. It is much easier and frankly much more exciting to tweet something out, that as offensive as it may be, it's easier to comprehend. Twitter is a wonderful, I think, platform for our laziness and our inattention to detail, because Twitter is, you've got 140 characters and that's it. And that's it. You either get your big idea out there or it gets lost.
Now, it's really interesting. Dina, I think, is the one who helps us. Notice how I said that, Dina. Helps us to focus on details, which I personally love, which is why I enjoy this class. I'm just a detailist. But by the same token, Rashi annoys her. And he's a detailer.
It's not the fact that he details. It's the ideas he comes up with that just, they're so far out of the box that they were never in the box. They weren't even in the neighborhood, as far as I'm concerned.
Which is why Chabad has a whole area, I think it's Chabad, what is bothering Rashi? There's this.
What's bothering Rashi, right?
Pardon me?
Yeah, what's bothering Rashi?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. When you're studying Rashi, that's the question you ask.
Yeah.
The question when you're studying Rashi is what's bothering him, because there's always something bothering Rashi.
Right. I love it.
What's also interesting, though, is the intersection between the minutia and the big ideas. In that so often I've at least found in our learning together that, you know, we'll find a little piece of minutia that will just shine the brightest light on the most important big idea that I never would have gleaned from a text had I not paid that close attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has happened. I felt that too.
And so again, that brings me back though to my question. We've spent all this time trying to figure out the order of this text. I go back to Lenore's question. Why is it in this order in the text if this isn't the chronological order? What's the purpose in having it presented to us in this way? I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not sure there's a purpose. I'm not sure that question is a real question. We brought up the idea of multiple editors and this having been added to as time went on by different redactors, or not added perhaps, but edited certainly.
Too much.
And if that is all true, it seems obvious to me that this so easily could be changed by those different players.
But why would they change? Why? Why?
I don't know that they did it on purpose with a why in mind. That's what I mean.
No, we have to ask the why. I disagree.
Oh.
I disagree. Look, you could say you can throw away any discrepancy in the Torah and say it was an error, it was a mistake, it wasn't intentional. But that the real power of it comes from saying, no, this was intentional. Why? I think that's just me.
Well, we're having trouble with the intention here.
Right. I agree.
I'm ready to go on. It's get to some more main points.
By the way, just to correct myself, before I mentioned in passing that Shavuot is on the 8th of Sivan, it's on the 6th. I'm sorry about that. This was, according to Rashi, this was 2 days before Rosh Hashanah, before Shavuot. Shavuot.
So what are you trying to change?
Yeah, there you go.
What is your purpose in getting us all mixed up? I don't know what to say the purpose could possibly be. Wouldn't have the foggiest notion.
So let's go.
Well, I think that part of the purpose may be for us to drill down into where it says all of the commands of the Lord and all the rules. When it says he went and repeated, I wonder if maybe the purpose is to remind us of those commandments that were given before the 10 commandments.
Noah, the 7 commandments.
Yeah, those and the ones that they say here were given at Marah.
I don't remember that.
I hate to say this because I'm not sure I like the idea. However, do you think that this is just getting us back on track? Because we've had a major interruption in the story in order to get all these laws that we just had.
Right.
So is this just a device to get us back into the story of Revelation and the new rules?
Right. So right. So
like
yeah. Right. It's almost as if the text would say, chapter 23 ends, "For you will serve their gods, and it will prove a snare to you." Now, do you remember when God said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord with Aaron, Nadav, and Abihu," and 70? All right, we're back there now.
Yeah. I'm not thrilled with the idea, but it seems to be a device because we've got to get back to who's on the mountain, who's not on the mountain, so that we can move on to the golden calf.
Who's on first and what's on second?
And this is the very last chapter of, it's not very long, is it? This is sort of, yeah, it's sort of finalizing Mishpatim. It's sort of drawing all together and getting us to a place for the next Parsha.
I like the idea of reminding us who's on the mountain. That resonates with me, and getting us back into the narrative.
Yeah. So you don't like it, Dina, but we do.
Well, it seems kind of a shame that we need it, but it seems that's the only reason I can think of that it would be here, because we've just had, columns and columns of laws.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems to me that it must be a device to get us back to the story.
Let's see now. Hold on. At the very end of this chapter, Moses ascended the mountain and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of Hashem rested upon Mount Sinai. And the next parsha, Hashem spoke to Moses saying, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I'm just looking back to see where the narrative ended.
So, Freddie, you're saying then that it was the editor that put it together.
Well, it seems like from what Dina suggested, and I, looking a little ahead, it makes a lot of sense as to where that is placed, chapter 24, verse 1, that somebody who was redacting this story or editing it, went over their work and all the laws and all the rules, and then said, well, we got to get back to the story.
The whole Pasha of Mishpatim is out of the narrative.
Right. And the next parsha, you're on the top. Moses.
Yitro, the Pasha before, is still talking about, they'll make the gods, and it's kind of the ends of the rules.
So this big view, detailed view, now we are doing now a less detailed view by looking forward and backward to where this parsha is, or this chapter of Mishpatim is among or within the story, the narrative.
So maybe that's the point. Maybe the point of this, of looking carefully and at the minutia of this, is to tell us, step back, pay attention, right? This is maybe the point of this, is to jog us and to say, okay, you've been reading this story for a while. You may have gotten bored with some laws, but pay attention now. We're going to throw something. We're going to throw a cog in the wheel. We're going to send you something out of order so that you can step back and recognize where this is in the larger picture.
Yeah. It feels right. It just feels comfortable.
Okay.
Hey, Dina, that was good. You didn't like it.
No. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was almost a sense of I didn't like the reason for it. No, I don't mean to say that. I can't explain what it is that I'm not thrilled with.
You don't like that it's an editor playing with us.
Well, that's part of it, because I still don't accept different authors.
Right.
Well, then forget different authors. It's God. Then
so
it's God crafting the text in such a way that it forces us to step back and stand on that mountain and look at all the different paths. Right? That's your famous thing. Yeah. It's forcing us to take that bird's eye view.
Okay.
Very
All right, let's read verse 4.
Verse 4. Moses wrote all the words of Hashem. He arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 standing stones for the 12 tribes of Israel.
So according to Rashi, he wrote from Genesis all the way up to this moment, to the giving of the Torah. That's what he wrote down.
Right. According to Nachmanides and his cohorts, he taught and wrote all the teaching of the last 3 chapters, which God had taught him at Sinai. And on the next morning, he erected an altar. Because we kind of skimmed over 3.
Right.
Oh, right. The we will do.
Moses came and told the people all the words of Hashem and all the laws, and the entire people responded with one voice, and they said, all the words that Hashem has spoken, we will do.
Right. You're right. We did skip over that.
Oh, sorry.
So
We will do
So
all the things.
what he came back with was all of Mishpatim.
According to Ramban.
Well,
Was-
but that's all he's had so far.
No,
Right.
they have, according to Rashi, the commands of the Lord refer to avoiding women and setting bounds around the mountain. So the laws specifically about revelation, and all the rules refer to the 7 Noahide laws and the stuff that were given at the laws that were given at
so-
Marah.
Kol HaMishpatim. Okay, it's Kol Divrei Hashem ve'es Kol HaMishpatim. So the Mishpatim, you're saying, are the rules of purity for them to get ready to receive the 10 Commandments?
No, the first one. Where is it?
Separating and making-
Divrei Hashem, commandments of the Lord or words of the Lord. According to Rashi, that refers to setting bounds around the mountain and not coming close to women. And then Mishpatim refers to the 7 Noahide laws and all the stuff about the Sabbath. Now, what's interesting about that is that this parsha is called Mishpatim. Wouldn't those refer to what we just read in the parsha?
Yeah.
And in fact, that's what Ibn Ezra seems to say. That the commands of the Lord, hold on, 23, 20 through 33. 23, 20 through 33. The rules are 21:2. 21. Yeah. So according to Ibn Ezra, the rules are basically the parsha that we just read. And the commands, 20:19 through 23. Let me just go back. 20:19 through 23. And the commands refer to don't make gods of silver, make me an altar, stuff like that. Wow, there are just 3 completely different perspectives on what this means.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
We just come out of 3 and 4. The people say, all the things the Lord has commanded we will do. And the next sentence is, Moses then wrote down all the commands of the Lord. Was Moses waiting to hear that from the people before he would go ahead?
That's a wonderful question. It reminds me of in a wedding ceremony. Before the ceremony, during the ketubah signing, there are 2 parts to the ketubah signing. There's Kabbalat Kinyan, and then there's actually the signing itself. So Kabbalat Kinyan is when each party, the groom and the bride, each say, I accept the terms of this ketubah. So they're basically saying what the Jews are saying here, Na'aseh, we're going to live up to this ketubah, and then you sign it. So I think it's that, right? It's you don't sign something until we talk about reading the small print, but or the fine print, But for them, it was say out loud that you're going to abide by this and then sign it.
So that was sort of a general thing, or you think Moses just adhered to that because he thought that was the right way?
It's kind of it did things.
God required.
No, it's possible that we didn't make this up. It's possible. It's probably very likely that this is how covenants were crafted in antiquity.
Mm-hmm. That's
That
fine.
first there was some sort of an oral acceptance and then a written acceptance.
Well, we still have that today.
Right.
You know, you go to buy a house, first you agree orally that you're going to buy it, and then you sign a purchase and sale, you know, with all the details
Right.
hammered out.
Right. What's different here is that with a purchase and sale, there's a period of negotiation
Right.
after you start to write it, and there is no negotiation. So that actually really, that's a very important piece that sets this apart, right? Everyone said, Kol Ha'am said, we accept this, period. Na'aseh, we're going to do it, no matter what. No negotiation necessary.
One of those rare moments where they remembered all the things that Hashem had done for them.
Right.
And then else they were tired. I was.
And of course, this should also, by the way, not remind us of, but it should bring up in our minds the verse later on. Where is it? Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do it and we will understand it. No, that's later on. I think that's, I don't know where that is. Let me look up where that is.
Something like that, yeah.
Na'aseh v'nishma is, oh my God, my internet is so slow today. I can't get anything. Here we go. 24/7. What? Oh, duh. It's right there. It's 3 verses later. Sorry. I thought it was much later. So here they say we will do it, and then 3 verses later they say we will do it and we will pay attention to it, and we will understand it.
I have, and we will do and we will obey, which really isn't too different from here.
Right. And in my English actually says we will faithfully do. If you really want to translate the Hebrew literally, it's na'aseh, we will do, v'nishma, and we will hear.
We will do and we will hear.
In that order.
Why wouldn't you hear and then do?
That's effective, isn't it?
Well, let's when we get to verse 7, we'll do that.
Yeah, we
Because
commentary.
that's a whole big
Yeah,
discussion. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We're so
So,
slow. Can't see.
Before we stop, so next week is Sukkot, so we won't meet. The following week is Simchat Torah. So we're off for 2 weeks, and then we're back on November 1st.
So it is 2 weeks you're going to make.
It is 2 weeks, and we'll pick up, I guess, with verse maybe 4, because we didn't really talk about that, right?
Right.
Right.
All right, so we'll pick up with verse 4.
Have an easy fast, everyone.
I hope everyone has a wonderful, meaningful Yom Kippur, and Gamar Chatima Tova, as we say. A
Right.
good finish to the year, and I'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Is your daughter-
Hello, Rabbi Joan.
She can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Tell her I said easy fast.
I will.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Rabbi